Live from a WeWork phone booth, and we're talking about Antar. I don't know how to say the name. Antares. Antares. All right. So what is Antares? And we are specifically looking into the Antares Nuclear Energy Company, which is led by Julia Duval. So let's see where we. Antares is also a red supergiant star, brightest in Scorpius constellation, roughly 550 light years from Earth. It's about 700 times the sun's diameter and 10,000 times brighter, often studied for its massive size and eventual supernova potential. If you're asking about astronomy, I can dive deeper into its properties or observational data. In aerospace, Antares is a rocket developed by Northrop Grumman, now with Firefly Aerospace's collaboration for launching cargo. But okay, we are not looking into this one. We are looking into Antares Nuclear Energy Company. You're referring to Antares Nuclear, a company focused on developing micro-sized nuclear reactors for remote and off-grid applications, including terrestrial, space, and defense uses. Below is a concise overview of Antares Nuclear Energy Company tailored to your interest in industrial revolution and recent developments. 23 by Jordan Bramble and Julia DeBall, headquartered in Redondo Beach, California, to provide abundant clean energy from Earth to the asteroid belt, building transportable micro reactors for critical infrastructure, military, and space applications. Provide abundant clean energy from Earth to the asteroid belt, building transportable micro reactors for critical infrastructure, military, and space applications. Primary product, the entire, yeah, I don't know how to say this name, Antares. We might be mispronouncing the entire name of the company throughout the stream, but okay. Antares are 1 kilowatt scale deployable microreactor designed for austere environments. It offers continuous energy for up to 3 years without a sustaining supply chain, automated controls and power management for minimal maintenance, applications in remote terrestrial locations, military bases, extractive industries, edge computing, and space-based power. Funding raised 38.1 million across two rounds, Series A, September 24, led by All Capital, Caffeinated Capital with investors like Box Group, Rogue, and Shine Capital. Funds will expand R&D and manufacturing for the first micro-reactor demonstration. Initial round 8.12, supporting early development, secured 4.3 in government contracts from the Department of Defense and Department of Energy to advance microreactor technology. Partnerships. Manufacturer. Antares partnered with manufacturer to streamline production using advanced software for quality control and workflow optimization that supports high reliability microreactors for DoD and commercial markets. Savannah River National Laboratory entered a cooperative research and development agreement to accelerate microreactor deployment for defense and commercial use, leveraging SRNL's nuclear expertise. X Labs collaborated to develop nuclear-powered spacecraft, integrating Antares microreactors into X Labs' science exploration and resource vehicle for deep space missions. Works with Idaho National Laboratory for independent verification and system development. Demonstrated a heat pipe and machine core components critical for reactor functionality. Opened at 128,000 square feet factory in Los Angeles, announced February 25 to support microreactor production. Plans to power up its first 240 kilowatt thermal demonstration unit by mid 25, with features like built-in shielding and 3-year autonomous operation. New R&D facility opening in early 25 to develop high temperature heat pipes and other components. Targets power constrained environments, remote military installations, space missions rather than grid scale power, emphasizing modularity and rapid deployment. Clients with growing demand for nuclear energy driven by AI and tech sectors, Microsoft, Google, Amazon investing in SMRs for data centers, positions itself as a partner for America's defense industrial base, enhancing national security and industrial decarbonization. This is so interesting, like husband and wife, husband, social media, wife, nuclear energy. Must be pretty cool. Must be pretty cool. Must be very interesting. Relevance to your interest, aerospace and defense. Antares microreactors support DoD application and space missions aligning with your interest in aerospace innovation. Hadrian's role in space flight parts. Their XLab's partnership for nuclear-powered spacecraft ties directly to advanced space exploration. Partnership and LA factory reflects Antares' focus on advanced manufacturing similar to Hadrian's precision machining or NAIA's industrial goals. Embodies the innovative defense-focused industrial base you have explored, aiming to revive iterative nuclear deployment, development, and strengthen U.S. energy resilience. Clarification and notes. Distinction: Antares Nuclear Inc. Redondo Beach is distinct from the nuclear consulting or energy with focus on consulting and oil and gas, respectively. So, Julia mentioned, I'm excited to announce Antares. Jordan and I start Antares with a shared vision of abundant clean energy for all from Earth to the asteroid belt. We are building micro-sized nuclear reactors to provide power to remote off-grid locations. We're starting with the defense market to enable our military and allies to untether from the burden of fossil fuel supply chains and power next generation defense technologies. We have raised 8 million seed funding. So this was 23. From Earth to the asteroid belt, this is something we want to understand. Power to remote off-grid locations. Seed funding from caffeinated Humba VC. Susa. Wait, Susa and Humba, they both have gorilla as their gorilla gorilla as their logo, as their the word logo, no, yeah, in their logo, right? So Pathbreaker VC, you got Alice, Struck Cap, Uncommon, it's Mo Islam. Oh wow. Mo, okay. And then we got Heston Berkman and many awesome angels. Brian Armstrong. Very interesting. Congrats, John and Julia, you're going to crush it. All right, all the top guys over here. Very interesting. I don't know about Jordan. Jordan is CEO of House Nuclear Unlocking Abundant Clean Energy, ex White House. The golden age of America begins right now. Julia is co-founder and president. Age of Miracle Season 1 co-host. Angel investor, formerly Starlink, SpaceX, and Open Door. Nuclear energy is carbon-free, reliable 24/7, and incredibly safe, yet it remains misunderstood, rarely celebrated, and deeply underinvested. And I wrote this essay about why that is and how we can build more of it. Let's see if Grok is this a short article? No. And Grok, can you give me key takeaways from this article? Comprehensive overview of nuclear energy's history, current state, and potential future in the U.S., emphasizing its role in addressing climate change and energy reliability. Historical context and challenges, early promise and setbacks. Nuclear energy began with the optimism in the 1950s, promising energy too cheap to meter for the Atoms for Peace initiative. However, public perception soured due to association with nuclear weapons from World War II, high-profile accidents, 3 Mile Island, Chernobyl, Fukushima, anti-nuclear movements in the late 1960s and amplified by environmental groups and media, which increased regulatory burdens and costs. Economic and policy barriers. By the 1980s, nuclear growth stalled due to rising costs from regulatory complexity and public opposition, deregulated electricity markets, favoring cheaper, faster to build fossil fuel plants. That's also very interesting, right? Because if you can just increase the amount of electricity cheaply with the short-term impact being more carbon, people don't really care about it because nuclear energy takes time, more expertise. And it's very interesting that there's so much conversation around nuclear energy right now. So what is the problem now? What is causing, why don't we have it right now? This would be an interesting thing. With so much investment in nuclear energy, what is the key obstacle slash hurdle today. Maybe we can write for clean, abundant, nuclear. See. Let's see if that changes anything. But that was interesting. While you were editing, the grok keeps generating the answer. That is really cool. Deregulated electricity markets favoring cheaper, faster to build fossil fuel plant subsidies for renewables and fossil fuels, which disadvantage nuclear. Hmm. With only 10% of electricity from nuclear today, despite its potential nuclear's unique advantages, carbon-free and reliable nuclear energy produces no carbon emissions, unlike fossil fuels, which has a high capacity, 90% uptime compared to solar, 70 to 28%, and wind, making it ideal for baseload power to meet constant grid demand. Despite accidents, nuclear is statistically safer than coal, oil, or gas, with fewer deaths per unit of energy produced. Modern reactor designs incorporate passive safety system to prevent disasters. Energy density. A single ton of uranium can power a city for a year, far surpassing the land and resource needs for renewables and fossil fuels. Hmm. This is very interesting. Somebody was talking about this that when a death happened through carbon, through fossil fuel, it is constantly happening, but we don't see it on the nuclear side because nuclear energy is very associated with nuclear bomb. What happens over there is that impact people have that picture in their mind that oh this explosion is dangerous to us, and maybe that leads to a lot of fear towards building this energy, building this medium of energy. Consumer opportunities, renewed interest. Inflation Reduction Act, DOE funding has spurred investments in nuclear, including subsidies for existing plants, new reactor designs like small modular reactors and micro reactors. Increased funding and encouraging companies to shift from decommissioning to operating plants. Palisades plant is revitalizing the nuclear supply chain from fuel to manufacturing. The Ukraine war and climate concerns highlight nuclear's role in providing reliable carbon-free energy and reducing dependence on volatile fossil fuel markets. Future potential recommendation. SMRs and microreactors promise lower cost, faster deployment, and suitability for remote or industrial applications, military bases, space missions, aligning with Antares focus. These designs could overcome the high upfront cost of traditional large reactors. Policy supports the article advocates for streamlined regulations to reduce cost and construction timelines, public-private partnerships to share financial risk, education to counter misconceptions, and build public transport. Mm. Balanced energy mix. Nuclear complements renewables by providing stable baseload power, ensuring grid reliability as solar and wind scale. It's not a competitor but a necessary partner for decarbonization. Economic and environmental impact. Expanding nuclear could lower energy prices, enhance energy security, and significantly cut emissions, supporting climate goals, reducing CO2 by 4% globally if capacity doubles by 2050 per nuclear industry estimates. Hmm. Critical perspective challenges remain. High initial cost, waste management, public skepticism persist. Counter arguments. Scale faster, avoid nuclear risks. Oh, default. Countries that renewables alone can meet baseload demand and nuclear's risks are manageable with modern technology. Nuclear renaissance, SMR deals, geopolitical needs, 38.1 million funding, DoD contracts, American dynamism. Nuclear as a reliable, secure energy source supports the industrial and defense-focused innovation you have explored. The key obstacle, regulatory complexity and lengthy permitting processes. This hurdle consistently emerges as the primary bottleneck across analysis of the nuclear sector, including insights from Julia for long timelines, permitting delays. The U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission requires extensive safety, environmental, and technical reviews, often taking 5 to 10 years for new reactor designs or plant construction. For example, licensing a new small modular reactor or microreactor involves thousands of pages of documentation, multiple review stages. Hmm. These delays increase cost. interest on loans during construction, deter investors seeking faster returns, slowing deployment of clean nuclear energy. Nuclear plants uneconomical compared to fossil fuels or renewables. High compliance costs. Safety standards, while necessary, overly prescriptive regulations require costly redundancies and bespoke designs, even for inherently safer SMRs and microreactors. The lab Savannah River aimed to validate design, but NRC approval still demands significant sources. Economic barrier. Compliance costs can double project budgets. New scales, SMR project costs rose from 3 billion to 9 billion, partly due to regulatory requirements, making nuclear less competitive against subsidized renewables or natural gas. Inconsistencies, outdated frameworks. Designed for large 20th century reactors, not modern SMRs or microreactors, which have passive safety systems and lower risk profiles. So was approval for innovative design allowed tailored for remote or defense applications. Okay, very interesting. This makes a lot of sense. Like if if the regulatory approvals take a lot of time, then that creates a slow, the team loses momentum, the team has a lot of, let's say, loses momentum, there's a lot of moral, what do we call that? The team's morale is kind of lowered because of that. What happens what happens as well is what happens as well is the fact that from an investor perspective, they need all this funding to go and build this out. And if the investors see that, okay, I can put money into a meme coin and my funding, my capital can go 10x within like a month or so. But over here, it's just gonna take years. Why would I go through all that struggle? So this is very interesting. Then you also need investors who are really good at this, like investors who really believe in this, who are not here just for making money, but who are really here to make an impact, and they are really focused on the vision of clean and abundant energy, because then they would have built the network, they would have built the right influence, so that if a company comes up with the right product, they can help you really accelerate the entire regulatory process. So you have to then really make sure that you're working with the right people. Client, one of the investors that we covered, I forgot the name, Steel Atlas, Steel Atlas. So Steel Atlas seems like one of the VC funds that is really focused on building out the network, really making sure that they're building out the expertise and network so that if there's someone who comes up with the right technology, they can really accelerate them. They are not here to invest in any company randomly just investing in meme coins because they want to return capital. No, they really care about this vision and they are going to accelerate. They have built out a lot of expertise and network in that space so that they can reach that vision faster. Public and political resistance, regulatory feedback loop, public skepticism rooted in historical accidents, fuels stringent regulation. Since the 1960s has entrenched a cautious regulatory culture, even as modern designs mitigate risk. Permitting often faces not in my backyard challenges, delaying site approvals and increasing legal costs. Implications for clean, abundant nuclear energy. Regulatory delays prevent nuclear from scaling fast enough to meet climate goals, doubling global capacity by 2050, cut CO2 by 4%. Renewables with simpler permitting deploy faster but can match nuclear's baseload reliability. Investors, including those backing Antares 30 and 8.1 million rounds, face uncertainty over whether projects will clear regulatory hurdles on time, reducing capital flow to the sector. Hmm. Reducing capital flow to the sector, global competitiveness. Countries like China and Russia streamline nuclear approvals, deploying reactors faster. China's HDR PMSMR operation since 21, US delays risk ceding leadership in nuclear innovation. It's very interesting because when you're raising capital, when you're going to the government, you kind of want to also change the system of how things are happening, not just not just on technology, but also change the system because you really care about the entire industry and the country's competitiveness against other countries. So you have to start thinking really big. You're like, no, no, no. I'm not just building this technology for fun. I'm not just building this technology because I want to make more money. I really care about clean, abundant energy. And for that to happen, and for us to control that, for our country to control that future, we need to make sure that we are changing everything from ground up. We are creating new technology we are creating the same energy, but with modern technology. We are now also improving the approval system, the regulatory approval system, because that is a demotivating bunch of, or yeah, that is suppressing a bunch of innovation that is supposed to happen. And then you are competing against countries that might not have the best interest in mind. So it's so interesting. You have to start thinking bigger and bigger. Antares challenge. As a microreactor developer, Antares faces enormous scrutiny for its R1 reactor despite its small size and deployable design for defense and space partnerships. Manufacture, X Labs, and DoD contracts, but regulatory approval remains a critical part of 25 demonstrations and beyond. Streamlined regulations will accelerate Antares manufacturing scale-up. Example, its new 128,000 square feet LA factory, aligning with your focus on advanced manufacturing. Adrian's precision machining for aerospace. American dynamism, regulatory reform could unlock nuclear's potential as a cornerstone of US energy security and decarbonization, supporting the defense industrial base you have explored. Other hurdles, secondary but notable, high upfront costs. Even with investment, nuclear projects require billions upfront, though regulatory streamlining could reduce this burden. Public perception, misconceptions about safety, slow political support for reform, but education as stable advocates could shift sentiment. Shortage of nuclear engineers and domestic fuel suppliers exists, though investments funding are addressing this. Regulatory reform, simplify NRC processes for SMRs and microreactors, pre-approved standardized designs. The Advance Act aims to streamline licensing, but implementation is slow. Fair regulatory costs between government and companies like Antares, as seen in DOE support. International collaboration. Learn from countries with faster approvals. Canada's modular licensing while maintaining safety. Okay, Canada's better than this. Tell me more about Canada's modular licensing. And while we do that, let's also look at Julia Duvall. Mm, Oh, we have some updates over here. All right. So we can also look at the updates. Canada's modular licensing for nuclear reactors, particularly small modular reactors and microreactors, is managed by the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission and is designed to regulate innovative nuclear technologies while ensuring safety, security, and environmental protection. Notably flexible and technology neutral, making a global leader in adapting to new reactor designs like those pursued by Antares Nuclear for clean, abundant energy. Technology neutral and risk informed approach. The CNSC's regulatory framework under this Nuclear Safety and Control Act is designed to accommodate all nuclear technologies, including SMRs and microreactors, without prescribing specific reactor designs. It uses a graded approach where regulatory requirements are proportional to the risk posed by the reactor. Smaller, inherently safer designs, SMRs with passive safety systems, face less stringent than large traditional reactors, reducing cost and timeline. A great approach. Relicensing vendor design review, allowing vendors to submit reactor designs for early feedback before formal licensing. This is not a certification, but helps identify regulatory issues early, streamlining later applications. Okay. This is criticism, time consuming, fuel supply chain gaps. Hmm. Fuel must be imported from the US, France, or the UK, complicating logistics and increasing costs. Regulatory bias concerns. Hmm, Interesting. It offers opportunity. Canada's flexible risk informed licensing could benefit Antares R1 microreactor designed for low-risk deployable applications. Okay, let's look at the updates. The best of evenings when you Monday nights in Torrance would deliver this. Fun celebrating our factory opening line. We are building microreactors for Earth and space. If you're interested in joining us, this is very interesting. Okay, so when they say for Earth and beyond, so they are basically making microreactors that could be deployed anywhere, it seems like. This is the factory. No US flag in sight. So we don't know if this is good or bad. Okay, perfect. This is an excellent and sobering read. America underestimates the difficulty of bringing manufacturing back. Hmm. The 14 reasons why these tariffs will not bring manufacturing back. They are not high enough. America's industrial supply chain for many products is weak. I build furniture, I've assembled a computer, I can get everything I want at Home Depot and at Amazon. That's because America has an amazing consumer supply chain, but it is totally different from having an industrial supply chain. We have abundant cheap wood in the forests of the northern United States. But if you decided to move that chopstick factory to desert Saudi Arabia, you would not succeed because the supply chain of wood is poor. There simply aren't any trees for thousands of miles. You don't know how to make it. Apple knows how to build an iPhone, but may not know how to make the individual components. It may seem trivial to make that glass that separates your finger from the electronic engineering that powers your ability to access the internet, but it's difficult. The world buys semiconductors from Taiwan not because it's relatively expensive, more expensive than China, labor, and extensive supply chain, but because they know how to make the best semiconductors in the world. Even with infinite money, we cannot duplicate that because we lack the know-how. The effective cost of labor in the United States is higher than it looks. Chinese manufacturing labor isn't just cheaper, it's better. In China, there are no people who are too fat to work. The workers don't storm off mid-shift, never to return to the job. You don't have people who insist on being paid in cash so that they can keep their disability payments. They do acrobatics on the factory floor that the non-disabled workers cannot do. Chinese workers much less likely to physically attack each other and their manager. They don't take 30-minute bathroom breaks on company time. They don't often quit because their out-of-state mother of their children discovered their new job and now receives 60% off their wages as child support. They don't disappear because they have gone on myth benders, and they don't fall asleep on a box mitcher because their pay from yesterday got converted into bills. And they can do their timetables to manufacture. You need to be able to consistently and accurately multiply 7 times 9. 42? No. Oh, 63. 7 times 9. And read in English. And a disturbingly large portion of the American workforce cannot do that. Chinese workers work longer hours more happily, and they are physically faster with their hands. They can do things that American labor can't. It's years of accumulated skill, but it's also a culture that is oriented around hard work and education that the United States no longer has. Simply what I described above are non-theoretical situations. These are things that I have experienced or seen with my own eyes. It's fixable, but the American workforce needs great improvement in order to compete with the world's even with tariffs. So yes, Chinese wages are lower, but there are many countries with wages lower than China's. It's the work ethic, know-how, commitment combined with top-notch infrastructure makes China the most powerful manufacturing country in the world today. We don't have the infrastructure to manufacture. Made in America will take time. We place $50,000 with a supplier overseas before the election in November 24. There were no import taxes. By the time it arrived, 20% tariff had been applied. We had a surprise bill for 10,000. It can easily take 180 days for many products to go from order to on your doorstep, and this tariff policy seems to not understand that. By the time Made in America has begun, we will be electing a new president. Uncertainty and complexity around tariffs. Someone who runs a business in this industry, I've spent a huge portion of my time trying to keep up with the constant changes instead of running my business. Most Americans are going to hate manufacturing. Americans want less crime, good schools for the kids, and expensive healthcare. They don't want to be sewing shirts. The people most excited about this new tariff policy tend to be those who have never actually made anything, because if you have, you would know how hard the work is. When I first went to China as a naive 24-year-old, I told my supplier I was going to work a day in his factory. It lasted 4 hours. It was freezing cold, middle of winter. I had to crouch on a small tool, unsure, assembling little parts with my finger, at one-fourth the speed of the woman next to me. My back hurt, my fingers hurt. It was horrible. That's a lot of manufacturing. And enjoy the blackouts, the dangerous trucks on the road, the additional pollution. Be careful what you wish for America. Doing office work and selling ideas and assets. It's a lot easier than making actual things. Wow. Doing office work and selling ideas and assets is a lot easier than making actual things. Wow. Founder and CEO of Wireheart, consumer products company, founder and former CEO of Edison, legal tech company, doer of many things. The labor does not exist to make good products. And where the managers to manage these people. One of the reasons why manufacturing is declining in the United States is a brain drain towards sector that make more money. Are people who make money in the stock market and real estate and venture capital and startups going to start showing shirts? It's completely and totally unrealistic to assume that people will move from superficially high productivity sectors driven by US dollar strength to products that are low on the value chain. The United States is trying to bring back the jobs that China doesn't even want. They have policies to reduce low value manufacturing, and we are applying tariffs to bring it back. It's incomprehensible. Automation will not save us. Okay, this is the most important part. Let's see. Now we are getting into the real things. Most people think that the reason why American manufacturing is not competitive is labor costs. It can be solved by automation. First, China on a yearly basis installs 7x as many industrial robots as we do in the United States. Second, Chinese robots are cheaper. Most of today's manufacturing done by people cannot be automated. If it could, it would have already been done so by China, which again has increasingly high labor costs relative to the rest of the world. The robots you see on social media doing backflips are today mostly for show and unreliable off camera. They are not useful in the industrial environments. A humanoid robot can do it. An industrial machine, which is specialized in the task, can do it even better. Instead of having a humanoid robot doing a repetitive task, just carrying a box from one station to another, you can simply set up a cheaper, faster conveyor belt. Said another way, the printer in your office is cheaper and more efficient than both a human and a humanoid robot with a pen hand drawing each letter. That makes sense. Makes sense. So that's a better machine. I don't know, like robot doesn't have to look like a humanoid. Printer is a machine. It's unlikely that American ingenuity will be able to counter the flood of Chinese industrial robots which is coming. The first commercial electric vehicle was designed and built in the United States, but today China is dominating electric vehicle manufacturing across the world. Industrial robots will likely be the same story. Robots and overseas factory workers don't file lawsuits, but Americans do. I probably should not have written this article. Not only will I be attacked for being unpatriotic, but what I have written here makes me susceptible to employment lawsuits. For the record, I don't use a person's origin to determine whether or not they will do good work. I just look at the person and what they're capable of. Doing otherwise is bad business because there are talented people everywhere. America has an extremely litigious business environment, both in terms of regulation and employment lawsuits. Excessive regulation and an inefficient court system will stifle those with the courage to make in this country. Enforcement of the tariffs will be uneven and manipulated. What happens to the China company? Imagine two companies which import goods to the United States. One is based in China, other based in the United States. They both lie about the value of their goods so that they have to pay less tariffs. What happens to China company? Perhaps they lose a shipment when it's seized by the US government for cheating, but they won't pay additional fines because they're in China when where they are impervious to the US legal system. What happens to the US company? Owners go to prison. Who do you think is going to cheat more on tariffs, the China or the US? Exactly. The policies that are designed to help Americans will hurt them more than the competition. These policies are designed to punish. The tariff policies are structured the wrong way. Mm. Instead of making America great, we made Vietnam great. It's different huge amounts of manufacturing to Vietnam, which did not have labor force that is a lot more like China's than the United States was able to use its proximity to China for its supply chain over the past 7 or so years, slowly developed its own. With Vietnamese wages even lower than Chinese wages, instead of the jobs going to the United States, they just went to Vietnam instead. We are about to make the same mistake again. The China-based and the US-based companies which were importing goods into the United States. The US-based importer could have been a manufacturer. Instead of finished iPhones, perhaps they were importing the glass screens because they could not be found in the USA for final assembly. The government applied tariffs to finished goods and components equally. See that again, they applied the same tax to the components that you need to make things in America, and they did to finished goods that were made outside. Manufacturing works to make and sell in America. First, you must get the raw materials and components. These tariffs will bankrupt and manufacturers before it multiplies them because they need to pay tariffs. Michael Jordan sucked at baseball. America is the greatest economic power of. We have got the most talented people in the world, and we have a multi-century legacy of achieving what so many others the countries could not. Michael Jordan is arguably the greatest basketball player of all time, perhaps even the greatest athlete of all time. He played baseball in his youth. What happened when he switched from basketball to baseball? He went from being an MVP champion to being a middling player in the minor leagues. 2 years later, he was back to playing basketball. Maybe it's just an opening negotiating position. Definitely, this is a situation that has been developing, so it definitely doesn't end over here. If I I believe that if the government, if the administration is committed to solving this problem, then they will keep throwing ideas out there and with a very detailed and very, let's say, a good opinion like Molson's, a very interesting, detailed feedback of the policy by people like Molson, or the government can bring that into consideration. I think there's already been an agreement with China, and yeah, if they're committed to coming to a solution, then this is just a negotiating position. As we have seen, like they are constantly trading on this because they want to also find the best solution that actually works. And with Molson and other smart people who are committed, who are also committed to providing good constructive feedback and blind spots in their policy, it makes sense that the administration is looking to work on it. Maybe it's designed to crash the economy, lower interest rates, and then refinance the debt. I don't know. But if you take it at face value, there is no way that this policy will bring manufacturing back to the United States and make America wealthy again. It will make us much poorer. Many are saying that this tariff policy is the end of globalization. I don't think so. This is the end of America's participation in globalization. If we had enacted these policies in 2017 or 2018, this stood a much stronger chance of being successful. That was before COVID. China was much weaker economically and militarily then. They've been preparing 8 years for this moment and they are ready. Chinese made cars, particularly electric vehicles, are taking the world by storm without the United States. Go to Mexico, to Thailand, to Germany, and you will see Chinese made electric vehicles on the streets. And they're good, sometimes even better than the US made cars. And not just on a per dollar basis, but simpler simply better quality. This is what is going to happen to the United States. Globalization will continue without us if these policies continue unchanged. I think the tariffs will be changed. There's no way we continue to place a 46% tariff on Vietnam when 8 years ago we nudged American companies to put all their production there. Most likely, this policy will continue another round of the same type of investment. Rather than replacing made in China with made in USA, we will replace it with made in Vietnam, Mexico, etc. And in the process of doing this, regardless of whether or not we reverse the policies, we will have a recession. There isn't time to build US factories, nor is it realistic or likely to occur. And American importers don't have the money to pay for the goods they import. People are predicting inflation in the cost of goods, but we can just as easily have deflation from economic turmoil. Three reasons why we want to actually bring manufacturing back. It makes the country stronger. We're beholden to that country. The United States must have large, flexible capacity in these areas. It makes it easier to innovate. The factory floor is down the hall instead of 30 hours of travel away. It's easier to make improvements and invent. We need to have manufacturing of high value goods like drones, robots, and military equipment that are necessary for economic future and safety. It'll be difficult for us to apply AI to manufacturing if we're not doing it here. People are simplistically People can simplistically be divided into three buckets. Those are verbal intelligence, those are mathematical intelligence, and those are spatial intelligence. Verbal intelligence, mathematical intelligence, and spatial intelligence. Without a vibrant manufacturing industry, those with the latter type of intelligence cannot fulfill their potential. This is one reason why so many men drop out, smoke weed, play video games. They aren't built for office jobs and would excel at manufacturing, but those jobs don't exist or pay poorly. How to actually bring manufacturing back? Amazing post. Former USMC. Vibes rarely serious, but always positive. Let's talk business. Existing seems lucky to have such a beacon of curiosity, relentlessness, and humility on its team. General matter, we expected this. General matter is enriching uranium for the US. Exciting to think California could finally be headed in a positive direction on nuclear energy, but it's not a done deal yet. Make your voice heard. Reach out to your legislator. Declare your free agency. Lay bum. NY next. King James chooses Miami. Whoa, what was that? What was that? Declare your free agency. Apply. Wait, I don't know the context of this. This is beautiful. This is beautiful. Yes, you need an American flag. You need an American flag. We're excited to officially announce the opening of our new 128,000 square feet factory in LA, onwards to our first micronuclear reactor. I want to see how a micronuclear reactor looks like. Dan Romero. Okay. micro nuclear reactors will be built here. As well as 8th Feb. I love how hard tech companies always have giant American flags in their facilities. Hard tech. Land of the free, home of the brave. I'm giving a talk on nuclear energy and the Progress Conference. Introducing 24 LA Hot Tech 50. I want to know, what does micro nuclear reactor actually look like? Kilowatt class special purpose nuclear reactors, abundant energy from Earth to the asteroid belt. 29th April. Antares Saronic. You got a hot tech jacket. That's a hot tech jacket, ski jacket. Caffeinated. Foam air table. Boom arrow bricks. Federato. Playground Saronic Warda. Is Warda. That is Airtable. That is Caffeinated Capital. Wow. They made themselves a jacket. And that's so greasy. It was just, that is crazy. Raymond Tonsing. I'm guessing this is what it looks like. It's going to announce a 30 million Series A fundraise led by AllCap, J, Altma, and Cabinet Gap, building microreactors to power defense, space, and industrial critical infrastructure. We're excited to accelerate the development of our first reactor. Oh, what happened to our ferry? What are the major milestones in the history of Antares nuclear since its inception? Let's see. On 2022, transportable microreactors, remote locations, military base, potential space missions, raise initial seed funding. Exact amount was not disclosed. The company began building its technical team and infrastructure. A few key milestones, including successful demonstration of its first heat pipe and the machining of core reactor components. These advancements validated critical aspects of its microreactor technology. Secured 4.3 million government contracts from the US Department of Defense and Department of Energy, signaling early confidence. October 24, 30 million Series A, accelerated development of its first microreactor designed to fit within a standard shipping container and deliver kilowatt scale power to remote and critical infrastructure. Open dedicated research and development facility in early 25 focused on advancing high temperature heat pipes and other reactor components. Okay, so they first proved that they can make technical demonstration, successful demonstration of the components which led to Series A. Interesting. The company is constructing a 240 kilowatt electrically heated demonstration unit scheduled to come online by May 25. This unit will serve as a critical test system to validate the microreactor's design and performance. As part of a broader resurgence of interest in nuclear energy driven by the growing energy demands of AI and data centers, as well as the need for reliable carbon-free car, its focus on microreactors differentiates from the traditional large-scale nuclear projects targeting niche applications like military operations and space exploration. The company's progress, including government backing and significant private investment, positions it as a notable player in the emerging nuclear startup ecosystem. Very interesting. And maybe we'll go back to their website and quickly see if there's something interesting on the website. Okay, the website has changed. I remember looking at the website a while back. Abundant energy from Earth to the asteroid belt. Fission microreactors to enable strategic energy for critical mission. Space and underwater. Love how AI generated these photos are. Kilowatt scale special purpose reactor, integrated shielding and transport cradle, reactivity controls, graphite and boron convert control drums with independent actuator motors inspired by historical space reactor designs. Okay, there we go. The core fuel in prismatic graphite core, or we call the sodium heat pipes, enable redundant high temperature entirely passive heat transfer, primary heat exchanger, nitrogen Brayton cycle, efficient power conversion, low maintenance, low corrosion, leak resistant, high reliability, management distribution, conditioned through a power management distribution node which can flexibly deliver power. Okay, these are all the things we got. Integrated shield and transport cradle, reactivity controls. Where is core in here? Core sodium heat pipe, primary heat exchanger. Okay. Simple design, optimized for reliability, uptime, and manufacturability. Nuclear core, primary heat exchanger, turbine, recuperator, compressor, alternator, waste heat rejection. So you basically understand what is happening. Heat is generated, converted into steam, which runs the turbine, which creates energy. Vertically integrated supply chain, special purpose reactors, heat pipes, thermal management, control systems, machining. Beautiful. Okay, we learned a lot today. Thank you. Thank you.